I'm being honest, in this crazy world we're living in these days, sometimes a girl just needs to be a goblin. Just throw on a baggy grandpa sweater and a pair of Doc Martens, run away to the forest, and forage for mushrooms to sustain herself. To be a goblin is to separate yourself from the pressures of modern society and its rigid gender expectations and impossible beauty standards. So yeah, sometimes a girl just needs to be a goblin. Or at least allow herself to be inspired by what goblins represent. So today I'm gonna explore the Goblincore aesthetic and give you some decor ideas on how to embrace your inner goblin to create an earthy, cozy, pretty but not too pretty space for yourself. Like, metaphorically, let's run away to the forest together and learn to be more goblin-y. And maybe never return to society. Up to you. And if you're new here, my name is Steffi and this is Hilo, and on this channel I talk about small apartment styling tips, cozy living, some of the more alternative and fantasy styles, and the joys of living alone. So if you're into that, consider subscribing and giving this video a like. And just a reminder, I am currently in the midst of my Fairy Summer series, in which I'm dedicating all of my videos to fantasy aesthetics for the summer. So far I've done hobbitcore, fairycore, the sea witch aesthetic, elfcore, and now Goblincore. So if you want to catch up on those, check out this playlist of mine. But for now, let's get into Goblincore. Like with any of my style deep dive videos, I'm going to give you specific decor ideas, then show you how some of them could come together in a bedroom design I created. But first, let's talk about what Goblincore is. So Goblincore is an aesthetic that really revels in the imperfect beauty of nature. You know, the things that aren't typically thought of as conventionally beautiful. It's boots stomping through the mud. It's creatures like snails, frogs, and bats. It's moss and mushrooms. The petrichor scent after a hard rain. And I think I personally connect to Goblincore because to me, it's very Pacific Northwest coded. It's green and wet and unpolished, like an earthy grunge fantasy. As a girl who spent a good portion of her childhood playing in the damp, evergreen woods in the Seattle suburbs, that foresty fantasy taps into something so pure and nostalgic for me. And it has a lot in common with aesthetics like cottagecore and whimsigoth. Like, there's a lot of visual crossover there, but Goblincore is especially down to earth and not afraid to get its hands dirty or to get a little ugly and weird with it. It's like cottagecore, but more feral. Like, when you think about the folklore of goblins, they often symbolize the wild, chaotic, and untamed parts of nature that aren't easy to understand. They're often tricksters that play pranks on humans, as if we're not confused enough as it is by default. Or sometimes they're a weirdly hot goblin king who kidnapped your little brother and trapped you in a labyrinth because he has an inappropriate obsession with you. Either way, I feel like goblins represent the mysteries that we can't quite figure out, the labyrinths of life, if you will. So when we explore Goblincore as an aesthetic, I think it's an act of investigating the mystery and wildness of the world and our place in it, without frills and polish and the conventionally beautiful. And I think a lovely example of Goblincore is this Instagram account, Cozy Goblin Gaming. Like, look at this room and her gaming setup. It's just lush with Goblincore energy, as well as a bunch of Legend of Zelda moments, which of course I love. Any girl who chooses to rock the Sheikah symbol, an image of Saria, and a bottle of Lon Lon Ranch milk, for extra heart replenishment of course, is a kindred spirit in my book. But really, for those of you who have asked me how to incorporate fandom into your decor in a stylish way, this is how you do it. See how cohesive and aesthetically pleasing this is, yet you also have layer upon layer of geekery from Zelda to Totoro. She balances the fandom moments with a beautiful antique-y looking desk, tons of plants, a very green color palette, like aggressively green, which is perfect for this look. Like, I love an assertive use of green. And the little detail of her screen looking like a framed piece of art. This is a thoughtfully curated space that also doesn't take itself too seriously. There's so much to look at here, and the way she's styled this transports you straight to a green, cozy, goblin-y forest grove. I'll link to Cozy Goblin Gaming's Instagram account in the description. Definitely check her out for some amazing cozy Goblincore inspiration. So now that we've established what Goblincore is, let me show you some decor pieces I found for this style, starting with Decorative Accents. Goblincore really is perfect for the small details like these, like you're a little goblin gathering trinkets and treasures for your collection. And as you can see, there is definitely a bit of a mushroom motif going on here. Mushroom imagery really is a perfect go-to staple when it comes to these fantasy aesthetics I've been covering. Like, if you want to inject some woodsy whimsy into a room, mushroom accents are a no-brainer way to do it. And something like this mushroom nightlight would be perfect for a little whimsical touch. It reminds me of this piece I featured in my fairycore video, but I like this one for Goblincore in particular because it has more of an earthiness to it. It's not as sparkly and it has more of a brown-based earthy color palette. Honestly, both are great for Goblincore and for fairycore for that matter, but this is just where my mind goes when it comes to distinguishing the two. And then this mushroom piece is such a cool, creative take on a vase. I love how, like, inconspicuous it is about the fact that it is a vase. It could totally exist on its own without flowers or greenery and just be a nice sculptural accent. Or you can put in a little sprig of something and level it up to its full vase form. Love the versatility. Another type of accent to look out for Goblincore is little oddities like these. Remember what I said about gathering trinkets? Something like a mystery box this Etsy shop sells really aligns with the spirit of goblins, who in a lot of folkloric interpretations are gatherers of odds and ends. And when you're doing a fantasy-driven style like the ones I've been talking about, I find it helpful to, like, get in character. It's a fantasy. Lean into the make-believe and sometimes just straight up pretend to be a goblin. This is your chance to play pretend. How fun is that? And assuming the character of a goblin means making some of the choices a goblin would make. And that includes gathering little forest oddities like these. This looks like a solid goblin collection if I ever saw one. And a great place to store these oddities and anything else you might want to tuck away would be a trunk like this. This just looks like something a goblin would have, don't you think? The leather straps, the worn, aged look, the almost crooked imperfection of it, perfect for a goblin. And for my fellow small apartment dwellers, we're always on the lookout for attractive storage options, right? Not that this would be a huge help in terms of storing a lot of things or larger things, but it's something you can keep out that acts as decor and functional storage. The dual purposing between form and function is always something to keep in mind when decorating a small space. And then I found a few things that would be perfect for a Goblincore coffee table or shelf styling situation. This book about corvids of the Anglo-Celtic Isles and their folklore would be right at home on a Goblincore coffee table. It would be one of those kind of odd and unexpected styling details where your guests would be like, why do you have this? But when they open it up and learn that magpies have a long history throughout Britain and Ireland as bad omens or creatures of evil and are steeped in folklore with tales of devils, divination, and witchcraft, and this bad reputation has only been worsened through their high intelligence and ability to mimic human words. I don't know, that sounds like a good conversation starter to me. And just simply aesthetically, a book like this would blend seamlessly into a Goblincore room, just by the looks of it, as well as the content of it. Then this enchanted forest candle would be perfect. For one thing, when doing Goblincore, we want to evoke enchanted forest vibes, but also I've always said scent is an important part of creating a sense of home. Don't just decorate for your eyes, decorate for all your senses. And from the beautiful little story that's written on the label, it sounds like the scent profile of this candle would surely transport you to an enchanted forest. Listen to this. You step into a curious wood of magical creatures and dark wood dwellers, hidden by the cypress, evergreen, and fir trees. The flora envelops you in sweetness, while patchouli, amber, and smoke compel you down the path of adventure. I mean, this is my kind of candle. Who wrote that? Can you please write a novel? I want to read more of your work. And then another little accent that would be perfect for shelf or any sort of surface styling would be something like this little resin frog, which I just thought was fun and cute. It taps into the forest critter motif in Goblincore with the added prettiness of flowers, and it would be a nice, silly little detail on your coffee table or shelf styling. Because remember, little moments of not taking ourselves too seriously are a big part of these fantasy aesthetics, especially Goblincore, because goblins are just silly little guys. Now let's get into some throw pillows that would be lovely for Goblincore. First, we have a couple throw pillows that are more on the kitschy but still cute side of Goblincore. As I've said, snails are one of the go-to visuals for this style, so this snail pillow would be a fun, lighthearted take. I also like that it's not immediately obvious that it's a snail. Like, at first glance, it could be just a round pillow with a swirl design. But then you get a little surprise and delight moment when you realize that it is a snail. And then this acorn pillow would be another option to convey the woodsy, earthy nature of Goblincore. Also, with fall coming up, thank God, this would be perfect for the season. And like the snail pillow, it's lighthearted and cutesy, but still stylish, at least in my opinion. Then we have a couple of throw pillows that are a bit more on the subtle, pretty side of things, but still play into the theme. One with bunnies, the other with butterflies. Woodland creatures and insects are right in line with Goblincore. Much like the snail pillow, you get a fun surprise and delight moment when you discover this pattern has a bunch of hidden bunnies blending into the floral design. I really do love this kind of moment where a piece of decor reveals itself to be more than what you initially thought. It's fun to think that you're looking at a simple floral pattern, then realize that, nope, those are some cute little bunnies right there. And then this pillow is just undeniably pretty, but not too pretty for Goblincore. For me at least, the fact that it's covered in butterflies makes it suitable for the creepy crawly critter side of this style, but you know, I'm speaking as someone who is terrified of bugs, so maybe it's just me. Like, I don't see butterflies as pretty, therefore I don't see this pillow as too pretty for Goblincore. But despite my irrational fear of bugs, I can recognize that this is a beautiful pillow, especially with this cute little added detail on the back. That is adorable, I must admit. And then finally, for the throw pillow category, I have a couple simpler options that play into the cozy grandpa sweater aspect of Goblincore. Like, If you look at Goblincore outfits on Pinterest, you'll see a bunch of cute girls wearing baggy, chunky sweaters, plaid, and just a lot of cozy textures in an earthy color palette. So when decorating a Goblincore room, incorporating sweater-like material and plaid is a great way to add texture to the look. Not necessarily to make a directly Goblincore statement, but to use as layering pieces that reaffirm the atmosphere of the style. And I love these two pillows for that. Now let's get into some wall art. I found a couple kind of three-dimensional pieces, this mushroom one and this moss one. I love that they kind of look like they're about to pop out of their frames and continue growing into the room, untamed and wild. They feel very immersive, and they would be a way to bring the forest into your space. And then, as I said earlier, you can't go wrong with mushrooms for this look. This one would be a small detail and layered with other Goblincore things. It would really add so much to the overall styling picture. And this circular piece would add an organic pop of green. And I feel like it kind of looks like a goblin could have made it, you know, out of the moss they've been collecting from the magical nooks and crannies of the forest. Both of these pieces look to me like something an actual forest goblin would own, at least in my head canon. And then I found a couple of pieces of frog wall art, because if I haven't already made it clear, frogs are definitely friends to the goblins, no doubt about it. I love the Art Nouveau look of this one. It definitely plays into the Goblincore theme in an elevated, artistic way that I love. Something about elevating a swamp critter to an Art Nouveau place just feels deliciously poetic to me. And then this one has a little bit more of a sense of humor. A frog playing a violin is just whimsical and fun. And it has kind of a Toulouse-Lautrec vibe going on, which, like the last piece, I love that we're elevating frogs to such high art status. Like, love that for our froggy friends. And then we have some floating shelves that, like many of the things I'm featuring, bring the forest indoors. Again, we have some mushroom action here, and I love how this shelf looks like it could have magically sprouted from your walls. It'd bring a cool, swampy vibe to a room and would act as decor in and of itself, with or without additional styling. And then these live edge shelves are gorgeous and would be perfect stages to display your goblin-y knickknacks, like any of those decorative accents I featured earlier. These shelves would just be a cool woodsy way to display those things. And for those who love a good statement wall like I do, I found a couple wallpaper options. This one would immerse you into full-blown forest vibes. And for me personally, one of my favorite visuals in the world is evergreen trees on a foggy fall day. This one hits me right in the heart as a Seattle girl. I wish every day was foggy, to be frank. I would thrive in that reality. And wallpaper like this would be a way to feel like you live among the foggy trees, like the gloomy weather goblin I am. And then we have a more floral, feminine option with this one. I just love these colors and how the height of the flowers would almost make you feel like a Thumbelina-sized goblin in your space. I don't know, there's just something very whimsical and fairy tale-like about being surrounded by giant flowers. And there's no denying how beautiful this would be. Plus, it's versatile enough to go with all kinds of styles if you ever wanted to transition away from Goblincore and into another aesthetic at some point. Either way, both of these wallpaper options would just be devastatingly beautiful for a Goblincore room. But not too beautiful. They still have a swampy, earthy, goblin-y vibe about them. They have it all. Now let's get into some lighting options. These are the three I found, all of which have a woodsy, organic way about them. They kind of look as though they could have, like, naturally grown out of the earth, don't you think? I mean, these look like you could have just straight up found them in a forest. When doing a style like Goblincore, even technology can weave itself with foresty things, and the two can form a really beautiful yin and yang relationship. Electricity and wood, wires and branches, light bulbs and leaves. To me, lamps like these embody the conflict of technology versus nature, but also the beauty that can come from the balance and collaboration of the two. And ultimately, if we're gonna strip it down just to aesthetics, these simply look like the kind of lamps a goblin would have. We obviously don't have to abandon all forms of modern technology in order to embrace the goblin within, especially when lighting plays such an important role in making a room look beautiful. Technology isn't all bad. So those were the Goblincore decor pieces I found. Now let me show you the bedroom design I created for this look. You can definitely see my Pacific Northwest influence coming through here, especially with the wallpaper. I just think Goblincore is the perfect opportunity to use a wallpaper of some trees to really make you feel like you're transported to an enchanted forest where you can do your goblin-y things in peace. And as you can see, I've added some pieces to complete the design, like this headboard that looks kind of spiderwebby, which leans into the more creepy, crawly, unconventional beauty of this style. Then there's this simple green duvet to blend with the foresty color palette and set the stage for the throw pillows. Simplicity and no muss, no fuss pieces are great for styles like Goblincore that aren't really meant to be flashy or fancy. So in my mind, simple green bedding would do just fine. Then I also found this throw and rug that both remind me of moss. I was clearly really inspired by moss and the wet Pacific Northwest woods I grew up playing in, which is a wonderful place to operate from when decorating. Use your memories, get sentimental when decorating. It'll make your styling feel more soulful. And to me, moss represents my home. Moss is like nature's throw blanket. It's so cozy and textury, and I feel like this actual throw blanket does a really good job of mimicking moss. So naturally, I love it. And then I also added this dresser as well to give the room an antique, dark cottage vibe, which blends beautifully with Goblincore styling. I love the carved details here. Like, was this handcrafted by a goblin carpenter? I'd like to think so. I've decided that is the lore of this dresser. And then I also wanted you to see this with the floral wallpaper I found because I couldn't resist. Yes, this feels like a more maximalist take on this look. Definitely a lot more going on, but I think maximalism and Goblincore are very well suited for each other. This gives off that wild, untamed look that I think is perfect for this style. And then if you prefer something a bit more simple, this is what the design looks like without wallpaper at all. I think a brownish paint with a warm plum undertone would be perfect. I like how grounded this version looks, and like I said earlier, simplicity and no muss, no fuss styling is very in line with Goblincore. So those were my Goblincore decor ideas. Surely I'm not alone in identifying with goblins at least every once in a while. Like, there are definitely some days where I truly feel like I am a goblin. You know, the days where I don't put on makeup and I have greasy, unwashed hair and I'm just rotting on the couch all day with Hilo snuggled up next to me. I mean, that to me is the perfect cozy goblin day. Anyway, let me know in the comments what makes you feel like your best goblin self. Because remember, it's about being in a state where you're not caring about conventional beauty standards or societal expectations. Like, when do you feel free? Free and goblin-y. I guess Goblincore to me represents freedom. So let me know when you feel like your highest goblin self, and also in the comments let me know if you have any other fantasy aesthetics you would like me to cover this very summer. To catch up on the fantasy aesthetics I've covered so far, check out this playlist of mine next. Again, it's hobbitcore, fairycore, sea witch aesthetic, elfcore, you know, it's all the fairy tale greatest hits. So check that out next.